Greetings, everyone. How you all doing? Another Stargods vlog. I don't know. I'm getting mixed feelings about Stargods. Again, I'm going to do a deep video. I warn everybody here: if you can't handle deep videos, then shut this off right now. Okay. So I got a message. Well, what do you call them? Comment from somebody who said, "Oh, you should talk about Elvis." And Yeah, I will. I think I will. I'll talk about Elvis, but not like superficial trash about Elvis. Something that people have never really understood because the times are different now. So we don't really understand anything about the social engineering that Elvis represented. Now, he wasn't doing that purposely, but he was being used by the religious right wing at the time. And that may sound strange to you, but let me go through it and bear with me. And I think you'll see Elvis in a different light once this is finished. Okay, so we had Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Oh my goodness, man! This guy, talented. Okay, absolutely brilliant and talented. So what happened was we had the Mississippi Blues, Delta Blues, where the black people started. They started with their own music, and it was the blues, 145 blues. Greatest gift they ever gave us. And the 145 blues, and Elvis was attracted to this music, and he picked up on it, and he had a lot of, you know, ability to duplicate it. But what he did is he took the old black blues that was not very appealing. Like you had Big Mama Thornton, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Or should I lighten that up? You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. And he'd take these old black songs and he'd boost them, eh? So it would turn into you ain't nothing but a hound dog. You know, and all that. So 1954, he produced that album because he was jamming. He didn't know what to jam with. They went through all the normal songs, and Elvis didn't really like any of them. But then came to Big Mama Thornton, and he just juiced it up. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, you know. And they were amazed. They were blown away. And so that started his career in 1954, and by late 1954, he knew he was on the road to success. He knew that it was his jiggling legs that helped a lot. That's not taking away anything from his talent because he was just so talented. It's a shame he never wrote one song. All he had to do was rhyme some words, and they would make a song, and he could sing it. But that never happened. And so he became very, very, very famous. Now he shot up the ladder really fast because he was very, very talented, but he was dangerous. He was dangerous. The thing is that there was a great racial instability in America at that time. People forget. Today they go, whoa, 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 really? Wow. There was an intense racial friction, eh? So now Elvis comes out. He's a white guy, and he's singing like a black guy. And that didn't go over too well with the religious right. The churches all banded together. They did not like Elvis. Elvis was dangerous. Look at him up there in the 50s with the religious right. And he has this delinquent, that was the word they used, delinquent haircut. He had basically a gang haircut, is what he had, with the big sideburns. And people were just like, whoa, this guy's a delinquent. This guy is a bad influence on our kids. So all the rich church people hey, what's going on? Those N words, you gotta, we got trouble. We got trouble. And so, what broke down the racial barrier? It wasn't Martin Luther King. It was Elvis Presley. He kicked down the door between the black kids and the white kids, broke it down, and they formed and came together and they united black and white, which back then was whoa. Black guy, if a black guy ever went to a white restaurant, he'd be shot at. That's how serious this was. Muhammad Ali went to a cafe, they wouldn't serve him coffee. And this is the guy that was an athletic winner of boxing. And they wouldn't serve him. This is how serious it was. I want to get through to your heads how serious racism was at the time. Not like today. It was serious, a division right down the middle, babe. They had restrooms for whites that were clean and sparkly, and then they had the restaurants for blacks, and they were run down, and the restrooms were just divided, white only, black only. They never came together. The blacks would have to go to the back of the bus, and I was talking to a couple of black guys that were around back then. They said, well, they were in the back of the bus and they didn't mind at all because they didn't want to be around us crackers, us white guys. They didn't like white people and they didn't want to be around white people. So they had it great in the back. They didn't mind. So what if it's in the back? And I thought that was an interesting thought. Anyways, I'm not racist, so don't interpret everything I say as he's a racist. He's a racist. Um, Now the thing is that the racial friction was like this, okay? Just vibrating and sparking and smashing each other. Now you had George Wallace, who got a bunch of black kids together, and they were going to register in a white university. That was shocking. And in the end, he got assassinated because America was racist because of the Bible. Because the Bible, I think they all come from, black people come from a certain Shem or Ham or one of them from Noah's Ark, okay, that were cursed by God, and they were considered a curse of God by the religious right. The holy rollers who were in power in those days, they controlled the government. Did you know that I Love Lucy, she got pregnant and the word pregnant could not be used on the show? That's how strict it was, the morality. The morality was iron tight. And the way kids were that day, they wore suits, they listened to jazz. Jazz was a little hard to take, but it got accepted. So the racial barrier had to be broken down. And because there's a certain agenda team that felt at the time that the racial barrier should come down. And Elvis was used, now whether he knew he was being used or not, was engineering society, engineering the society. So what he did was he became very famous, and he sounded like a white guy, sounding like a black man, looking dangerous, looking like a hood on stage, like a gang member on stage. I mean, this wasn't like, oh wow, that's so cool, says the old people, the horn-rimmed glasses, like a Gary Lawson joke. Larson joke. Um, no, they were outraged. They were outraged. The religious right, the born agains got together and said, this guy has got to go. This guy cannot be allowed to influence their kids. And how are the kids being influenced? Because the girls, let's face it, at every concert, they were sexually aroused. And they didn't want the rich born agains of society. The ruling class said, no, this is going to stop. We have to stop him somehow. He's dangerous. This is what I call hillbilly Elvis. Hillbilly Elvis looked dangerous. And he sang like incredibly wild. Well, get out of this kitchen, and he was just like, wow. And he'd get up on all these TV shows, and he would dance, and he would jiggle and jive his hips, and let's face it, the girls were the ones screaming. The old ladies and the old men and the grannies and grandpas, they weren't impressed. Nobody was really impressed. It was the kids that were impressed. It was the kids that were screaming. And I listened to a documentary about the Beatles, and the guards were telling their story, how they hated to be guards at any Beatle concert because the feminine urine would be coming down the steps like a flood. I mean, this was all sexual. So what Elvis did is he took all these black songs, where were sexual to a certain extent, uh, because and they named rock and roll. Rock and roll is a sexual term, black sexual term back then for rocking and rolling. You know what I mean? Do I really have to spell it out? And so rock and roll, he fused sex into it. And he did say once that there was a quote. He says, now this is a grown-up show, okay? He was as horny as a goat feeding in a field of hot peppers. Oh boy. So and then today, years ago, we had Michael Jackson grabbing his crotch and all that. That's what music's about. It was, and his music was pretty much sexually exciting. And so the religious born agains got together and said, "This is of the devil." And all of a sudden, this big emergence, anti-Elvis started. They knew that he was introducing rock and roll, which used to be called rhythm and blues, cranked it up from "You ain't nothing but a hound" to "You ain't nothing but a hound dog," and just wailing away, sexually gyrating. And the born agains didn't like that. The church people did not like that. The religious right did not like that. They knew he had to go. And so there was a show. Oh, what was his name now? I forget the guy who did the show. But anyways, got Elvis on. Made him dress in a suit and had him sing "Hound Dog" to a hound dog. They wanted to crush that bad guy, that hillbilly Elvis image. And this was their first attempt to do that. Now, they knew, the disc jockeys knew this was rock and roll. This was the beginning with Elvis Presley. Rock and roll has got to go. And they'd smash the albums, they turned on rock and roll, banned it, and then they'd have preachers on there saying, "Rock and roll comes from the jungle. It comes from the N-word. It comes from the jungles of Africa. It's voodoo. It's trance. It's a Satan. Get him out of here." And so, this is what Christianity is. Christianity is evil. Modern Christianity is not even the original Christianity. It's evil. But that's a different subject that nobody really listens to or wants to hear about. So, and what the religious right did was they tried to tame him, but he didn't change. He was still out there gyrating with his. In fact, he was on the Elvis show one time, and Elvis was on the Ed Sullivan show, and Ed Sullivan was furious. They were taken by surprise, and then he said, "Next show, we're going to be filming you from here up. We're not filming you down below." Well, why was that? I read in a biography. The fact is that Elvis had string that he tied on the back of his guitar head there. And that string went to an empty toilet paper roller, which he shoved in his pants. So when he leaned back, "Woohoo, girls, look at that one." And I ain't hiding that. And so Elvis was, I mean, not Elvis, Ed Sullivan was furious, was absolutely furious. And so, because they had to, they had to compensate with the cameras and everything, this was a crisis. I mean, well, all the girls were just on fire, as they say. So they saw him as a threat to the moral structure of America. And the religious controlling right said, that's it, he's got to go. And look at, what's his name? Wallace. What's his first name? Wallace. I forget. Anyways, he was a political guy. He had a bunch of black people. He got them together. They were going to join a white university. I hope I didn't mention this already. They were going to join a white university, and the people went berserk. The N-word flying like gunshots everywhere. They just went berserk. But now you got the movie Forrest Gump that makes it look like it was just a lackadaisy diddle daddle, like, oh no, well, it's cute, isn't it? No, it was outrageous that this happened. And so he had to go. He had to go. And the controversy was just rising, rising. He got charged one time. And the next concert, he was told he had to calm it down. And so he just moved his little finger, he says, you ain't no more. And so it was getting very, very serious. It was, I hate to use the word, but climaxing to a point. I mean, it was just, this was it. The dam was about to burst. All the blacks, the white guys started liking the black music, where he had Little Richard. This is a black guy, like, singing like he's on fire. I mean, it was so intense. So, we got to get rid of, no, get the kid. So Pat Boone comes out, uh, you know, uh, Tutti Frutti. Oh, Rudy. Take it away, Perry Como. Tutti Frutti. Kids didn't like that. They didn't like that. But they were giving them, they were trying to control the music, keep the blacks down. Okay? The blacks gave us rock and roll, and it was the greatest gift to humanity that one could ever imagine. And I, for one, appreciate it. I grew up with the music from the 60s, 70s that was beyond any music today. Today's music is trash, absolute trash. But Elvis was kicking the door down, you see. So, hey, you got Elvis? Says the white guy to the black guy. Yeah, yeah, and they get together. Oh, what's happening to segregation? So okay, I'm going to say right now, I'm not racist. I'm not against the blacks. So don't twist this around. Oh yeah, he's really anti-black. I don't even like the word black. I wish I could come up. I've been trying to come up with a different word for them because it's terrible. He's a black man. And so in those days, if you're black, you're black as Satan. You know what I mean? It was really, really super racist. The friction was unbelievable. And the religious born again right had a lot of power. And all the preachers, rock and roll is from the jungles of Africa, and rock and roll was seen as the biggest threat to religious morality ever, ever. And who was leading it? Who was leading the charge? Elvis. He kicked down doors, and then all the others started coming up in the ranks. Rock stars, early rock stars. Like the Animals and the Yardbirds and all that. So it all developed from the 145 blues that the blacks introduced. Thank you, thank you. And what's the time on this? So it was getting huge. It had to be stopped. In the name of God, it had to be halted. because you got all the blacks now, and now the audiences in rock concerts were mixed. They weren't segregated. Oh my God, they weren't segregated because back then. Now I got to remember if I mentioned it. I did a. I'm redoing this after about 5 takes. Um, Back then, a black guy, if he went to a black, and I mean, if a black guy went to a white cafe, somebody would go to their truck, get out the rifle, and kill the man. That's how bad it was. And then you see what Elvis was doing. Elvis was sexy. He was hot. The girls were turned on. They were losing their children. Oh, screw the hymns, at church. I don't care. I got Elvis. And Elvis did all the good black songs, Tutti Frutti and Paralyzed and all those great old black songs. One night and juiced them up, and he became very famous, but he was extremely talented too. But they were using him. There is a certain agenda group that wants blacks and whites together. I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. You got any hints? Let me know. Put it in the comments. So something had to be done. So you had that show where he's singing to a hound dog. They tried to make him look stupid, calm him down. It didn't work. It didn't work. And then they had him with Frank Sinatra, and he's all dressed in a suit, and didn't work. He was still doing the hillbilly music. Elvis the hillbilly is what I call him back then. So something had to be done. The fist had to come down. The hammer had to fall. And what was that? Colonel Tom Parker, all of a sudden, probably advised by the religious right and threatened, took Elvis, got him out of America in Germany, got him in Germany to serve in the army for 3 years, but it was actually turned out to be a year and a half or something like that. I don't want to take the time to look it up. But anyways, he was out of commission. Now they weren't dwelling on him, and maybe they would forget him. And that's even Elvis was afraid of that. He said, if I go back, will they still know me? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how hard I try. If they've forgotten me, I'm finished. And so he came back to America, but he was different now. He was different. Now he was Las Vegas Elvis. He put a little weight on. He was different. He couldn't sing the same. He couldn't sing the old songs. Like the old songs, Lottie, 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 Miss Connie, gal, you sure look good. To Lottie, 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 just yelling. Look up the 1968 comeback of Elvis. It was just like, it was horrible. The man started ringing the front doorbell. Yeah. It was just horrible. He had no range. The new Elvis had no range at all. Who was the new Elvis? I think it was a clone, because they don't have exact matches, okay? They never do with cloning. I think they were, this guy was on fire. Well, get out of that kitchen and round those pots and pans. And then the new Elvis, like a hunk of burning love. He always had that low voice, and he lost all the high end. I smell a clone. And I've noticed that with like Steve Tyler of Aerosmith, the first album, his voice changes. He's got kind of a gruff voice, and then now it sounds like an old sailor who's like 50 years old. And so, and this happened with the Beatles. Paul McCartney went from a very low, and I think they were cloned too, because I've seen, just a sec. Paul McCartney's voice was low, raspy, and when he went up high, he'd strain to a new voice, which was falsetto. It was very high, high pitched, couldn't reach all the high notes. It wasn't low anymore. You compare Taste of Honey to Taste of Honey to Fool on the Hill. Big difference. Nobody knows it because everybody's stunned, eh? And I know it's a big difference in George Harrison's singing. Do you want to know a secret? You promise not to tell. That went to something in the way she moves. So it's like, wow, what happened here? What the hell happened here? And John Lennon went to a really screamy, jaggy voice. Yeah. Is there anybody going to listen to my story? To a very mellowed out, psychedelic singing, as in Strawberry Fields. Strawberry Fields, living is easy with eyes closed. Very hypnotic, very smooth. A little gravelly, but smooth. Different, complete different. And I think all of them were cloned except Ringo. I think Ringo reveals a lot about this cloning thing. So Elvis could have been cloned, or there's a piece of history here. Elvis was being born, but with him in the womb was his twin brother Jesse. Identical twins? I don't know. But anyways, Jesse died because of an umbilical cord got around his neck, which is extremely rare, and it killed him. That happened, or maybe Jesse survived. And then I know that when Elvis was in boot camp there, and I gotta tell you that one too. When he was in boot camp, he had threats, tons and tons and tons of life-threatening threats, I guess you'd say. So he had threats, tons, thousands of threats saying, "You smartened up and you corrupted my girl and blah blah blah, and I'm going to kill you." Anyways, I found this and it was credible, but I can't never find it again because YouTube has cleaned everything. They've removed things that they don't want us to have in the narrative, and same with Google. It's squeaky clean now. So I looked and looked for Google. I couldn't find it. Anyways, he was in the barracks. A bomb went off from one of these disgruntled boyfriend, and bomb went off, and he had a head injury. Well, doesn't that sound like Manchurian Candidate? And remember, shortly after that, his mother died too. He was fed up. Maybe he said, "Okay, they all don't like me. I'm a wild child. Jesse will take over." And Jesse, maybe he took over. His voice is different. That's what you get with clones, and that's what you get with natural twins. The voice changes, okay? Because, like I say, Elvis could not sing. Elvis had a high range, and then suddenly the new Vegas Elvis, big fat Elvis, he had no range at all. He had a low voice, which anybody can do the low voice. That's why it's so easy to impersonate Elvis. I impersonated Elvis for a few years at the bars. You know, when the band was failing, they couldn't get people up there to dance. They'd get me to do a couple of Elvis songs, and man, it would be packed. It would be packed, and they'd be trying to get through the doors. It'd be packed. It was fun. I never had so much fun in my life. But anyways, maybe Jesse took over and said, "Hey, listen, bro. No, you just take off. I'll take over. I'll just take over." And maybe that's why the autopsy was so weird, because I know it's weird because the family didn't want everybody to know that Elvis took lots of drugs. But maybe it was also because it was Jesse. They didn't want an autopsy, because Jesse had a rare disease, and this is what we find in the corpse and all that. But the picture they took of Elvis in the casket wasn't Elvis. I don't know whether Elvis died or not. It makes perfect sense that he died from these drugs, but I don't know. There's other little red flags that pop up, like none of the family felt it was him when they saw him in the coffin. They went, who is this guy? Who is this?" There's Elvis with a big short piggy nose. So, anyways, maybe Jesse took over his career and became the new Vegas. So, but the right wing, the born again Christian fanatics, felt good because all of a sudden comes out of the army and he's different, and he's no longer hillbilly Elvis. He is Vegas Elvis. So all the old people, the religious right and everything, they're all calmed down now. They all feel good. And he's wearing that stupid, pathetic jumpsuit. He looks like Vegas with all the rhinestones and all that. And so they were satisfied. Now all his music's like Perry Como music or something. You know, in the day, he'd sing very, very low. And that's why he couldn't sing the high notes. He couldn't sing, "Well, get out of that kitchen and run." He couldn't sing those. Look at the comeback in '68 where he sings some of the old songs. He's not singing. He's just yelling. He's just yelling. And he's not going up in tone at all. It's flat. But he did a lot of good numbers. He did good numbers. You can shake an apple off an apple tree. It's flat and it's low. It's not, you don't hear those high notes at all. And so when Elvis sings low, the original hillbilly, it would be high pitched, like Old Shep, stuff like that. So what they did was they denuded him. I mean, they made him, they turned him from a big, dangerous, wild kid to this fat Elvis in Vegas who just, would sing just mellow songs. In the day, I did it my way. There were times I heard the news. And when it went off, more than I could do. I mean, and the religious right, I think that was a plot. I think there was an actual agenda taking place. And maybe they created this bombing in the barrack, which I can't get. If any of you have a link to this, let me know. I'd love to have it. But the bomb went off. He had an injury, and he was in the hospital, and he almost died. And then he survived. So maybe the religious right talked to the government and said, "You got to shut this guy down. This guy's dangerous. He's immoral. He's Satan." And so he's giving black people more attention. The black people are part of the narrative. Their music, their jungle music, seeping into our kids' music. So the kids, they take Pat Boone and, "Oh, thanks, Mom." Tutti frutti, already. "Oh, you going out, Mom? Oh, okay, bye." Put it in the drawer, grab Elvis out and put him on. And they were also putting on the originals, "I tell you, Rudy," if they ever got caught. Woohoo! Our kid has the devil in him. I can't stand Christianity. Christianity's evil. It's not the original Christianity. The original Christianity was liquidated, exterminated, and burned on the stake. But now it's doing a comeback, and it's starting to change the world now. So that's a different subject that goes down the rabbit hole. Nobody cares. I don't want to watch I Love Lucy. I don't want to watch this nutcase. He's so wired. I'm not wired. So think about it. People are going to have to think about it. And Nobody wants to think about these deeper things, but I think it was a social engineering. Elvis led a social engineering project. He altered mind control, not by his own wish and desire, but he was manipulated. And he brought sex into music, and he brought blacks into the narrative. Wow. And rock and roll from the jungles of Africa started getting popular and the kids were dancing dirty, and, and swinging around, and those girls would spin and their dress would come right up, and that was, whoa, the devil's got them. I'm so sick and tired of this fantasy devil talk. Like, kids are out there because it's fun, it's enjoyable. They had music for themselves. They didn't have to listen to Beethoven and Chopin and all that. They had real music that they could identify with, and they loved. And I loved my rock and roll in the 60s and 70s. Oh my God, this best music ever, 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 ever. Big band. The Doors could flatten anybody today here. And you had all that folk rock, like the Byrds and Buffalo Springfield, and oh, it's there's a whole entire list of them. And and all the leaves are brown. They had real melody. Anyways, if I was young again, I wouldn't be able to. No, I'd play in a bar because there's no music. I'd have to play old stuff, and then people go, "What's that?" And then play Elvis, and get all these old people. They're having problems. They get seizures in their legs, so they can't dance, and the young people go, "Oh, that's so dumb," For the times they are changing. Look at the brilliant people back then. And look what we have today. We got nothing but narcissists and psychopaths thinking, I'm doing the right music. You know, listen to a song. Oh, no, I keep forgetting. Swift. What's her first name? Keep forgetting her name. Bad Blood. Look it up on the internet. Oh, it's stupid song. Has no melody. It's got nothing to offer. Taylor Swift, yeah. Bad Blood. Just awful. You compare that to the old one, and nobody comes close, or they ever will come to Led Zeppelin. Or Jimi Hendrix. Or Creedence Clearwater Revival. I could list goes on and on and on. But today, oh, that's old fogey music. I got a pain in my bum. Yeah, whatever. So there you go. It was a conspiracy. What is this? 38. That's not bad. It was a conspiracy. It was a right-wing conspiracy of the born-again Christians. They pretty much control everything. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I Love Lucy was pregnant, and so she's on the show pregnant, and they can't use the word pregnant because that's how the right-wing born-agains, in control they were. And they weren't going to allow no Elvis to come out there, ooh, 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 he's just not, they weren't going to tolerate it. And so I think that was the whole plan. Get him out of the way. Blow him up. Oh, that failed. What do? We'll go to the government. The government says, well, we got a cloning program, blah, blah. Or it could have been Jesse. They could have said, hey, Jesse, we need you, And he had a personality change. You'll see a personality change. All of a sudden, they're one thing, and next, they're different. They're different. They're totally different. He was a really rebellious, kind of snot-nosed kid. He looked like a gang member on stage. He shocked people. He had to go. That was a bad influence on the kids. What a horrible image for the church-going kids. And then what happened after that? He started doing all these gospel albums. My Lord, how great thou art, and all this. He started going super gospel, super religious. All the religious right would be, oh, praise Jesus, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they would be going nuts. But that wasn't an accident. That's not coincidence. They arranged it, they made it happen, and they got the big payoff. And Elvis sang all these gospel songs and praise Jesus and all that. And hallelujah. I don't know what I've been doing. So, anyways, thank you very much for listening. And I know it was deep. You'll survive. You'll make it. You'll make it. Hold on. It'll wear off. Then you can go back to not thinking and just listen to Alex Jones and read the newspaper. Worry about the war in Russia. Can I say Russia? So thank you very much. Good night.